My husband's girl best friend is pregnant and she says it's his. So I met my husband, 25M, while I was 22F, and we hit it off instantly. He was the man of my dreams. He took me on date nights and made sure I was loved, and gave me big gifts every so often, telling me I was the only one for him. I believe this since we have been together for 4 years now, and I've never had any issues until he introduced his best friend, who we will call Laura for privacy reasons. I remember we had an argument because he didn't tell me about her for our whole relationship. And he had been sneaking to see her and hang out with her at parties when I was sleeping, believing that he was working overtime. I was hurt by this, and my first thought immediately went to infidelity, but I found all of their texts to be platonic after he willingly told me to look. I thought she was nice at first, since when I first met her she spoke to me politely and said how lucky I was for about a week until there was a get-together, and my husband invited me along because it was her mother's anniversary, and her family loved my husband because they had known each other since they were kids. I was okay with this, and quite excited since I wanted to make more female friends and have girls' nights out to relieve my work stress since my job is difficult, and I make 6 figures. I should also mention my husband works in an office job that doesn't pay a lot, so I handle all of the house bills and chores while he is trying to get another job. I walked into the house with my husband, and she ran to him happy, and immediately wrapped her whole body around his arm and dragged him off to the garden. He didn't even come to get me or anything after being dragged away. So I went to the kitchen to ask for a drink, where I was greeted by Laura's mother. She is a lovely person. We generally had a nice talk about our own lives, and she made sure I felt welcome. The whole gathering was mainly nothing special, till it got to the dinner. I sat down next to my husband, and Laura walked up to me and asked me to move. I asked why, since the only other spot available was next to her uncle and mother, and since it was about her mother, wouldn't she want to sit next to her? Laura replied to the question with, "'Cause I want to sit next to him." I turned to my husband, who just nodded and told me to move as well, saying that I was being childish and making a scene. At this point, I generally felt my blood boiling. I stood up and told my husband that I felt uncomfortable, and that I need to go to the bathroom, and asked where it was. Laura told me, and I left the table doing breathing exercises trying to calm down. I ended up messaging my brother from the bathroom, and he said I was being jealous, and that I was overreacting, so I agreed, and went back to the table to sit next to Laura's mother. The whole time they were laughing, and it seemed that everything he said was funny to her, and she kept rubbing his back, touching his arms, and saying how strong he had gotten, and she would look at me smugly. The breaking point to all of this was when I put a bit of meat onto my plate, and she said, "Are you really going to eat all of that?" And I froze in embarrassment while my husband and her laughed. Her mother stood up for me, saying that was inappropriate, and to treat guests with respect, but she ignored it. Laura's very pretty and slim and works out, so coming from her, it hurt a lot. I stood up from my chair and walked out the front door and called my dad. I told him to pick me up and that I'll explain why in the car. When I got in the car, I broke down and told him everything. He said I was most likely overreacting, but the situation was very odd and that I'm welcome to stay with him for the time being. I thanked him and went back to our house. While I was getting comfortable, my phone flooded up with messages from my husband and Laura. I read the messages, and to my horror, my husband was saying I ruined the whole dinner, and that he was going to stay there for the night. I then read what Laura said, saying I had ruined her night because of my pick-me behavior. After doing research on that word, it's only filled me up with more anger. My husband came home around 5 p.m. from Laura's, and I immediately said, leaving me and staying at another woman's house was disgusting, and he started shouting that I'm overreacting again, and that I need to go counseling for my jealousy issues. For about a month, everything was going okay again. Apart from that, my husband got more distant and cold, and I could feel that our argument wedged a gap in our marriage. Until I got a message from Laura this morning with a positive pregnancy result and a threat saying we should get divorced because it's my husband's. I don't know what to do, and I'm just venting because I feel awful, and I feel like I failed as a wife. I don't know if I should confront my husband, and I'm thinking about it. Edit. I'm getting a lot of hate and death threats, so I'll clear up some allegations. I'm 26, not 22. I met my husband when I was 22. I've not confronted him because he's not home yet, and I'm contemplating calling and asking there, but he's not replied to my good morning text since he woke up before me and went to work. My dad owns a company that works with care homes, not going to say a lot about it for my safety, and that's how I make my money. No. I wasn't earning six figures at 22, but I am now at 26. No, my dad wasn't against me. He was just confused because I was crying to him and wasn't making a lot of sense, so he thought she was just being a bit touchy. No, Laura wasn't at our wedding, and I have doubts they are childhood friends. I plan on messaging her mother to ask if they've known each other for as long as they say, and I'll be confronting my husband tomorrow when he gets home. Story 2. I broke up with my then BF 3 months ago because I thought he had stolen $846 from me. I just found the money. I can't say this on my main account and I need to write this out, but oh my god, I fucked up. I fucked up badly. I just found the money. It was in the chest of drawers I put it in, but the drawer I put it in had a small opening in the back. I didn't know it was there. And the envelope of money fell down there. I would never have discovered it, but the drawers broke, so I was taking the chest apart, and there was the envelope. It's the same envelope because it has my handwriting on it, and the receipt from the bank. I have to apologize, but this is going to be so bad. I told my friends and family about this, about how I suspected that he had stolen from me since he was the only one in my house that day. No one else had a key, and I haven't left that room or my house with the money. God, he lost mutual friends because of me. I ended a 2-year relationship over this. I just didn't believe him when he said he didn't take it. I hurt him for no reason, and then I blocked him. An apology won't be enough. I'm going to contact him tomorrow, and then I'll tell everyone else. Wow, I fucked up. Story 3. My mom and her boyfriend kicked me out, and I spent months homeless. I just moved into my own place yesterday, and after my landlord left, I just broke down and sobbed. I can't even begin to explain how hard not having a place to call home is. It was so scary and humiliating. It was also not easy seeing parents being loving and caring towards their children. I would ask myself why my mom wasn't like that. Fortunately, I had a job, but still the dread of having to look for somewhere safe to sleep after work while people were going home was the worst. The feeling of complete hopelessness was overwhelming. I felt like I would never get out of the situation. But regardless, I pushed myself because the only person who could get me out of that situation was me. I took it one day at a time and always pestered my boss for more hours, and I saved every penny. I ate once a day to be economical because I just wanted to get out as soon as I could. Once in a blue moon, I'd spend a night at a cheap motel just to get some rest. The guilt would eat me up because it felt like a waste, but sometimes you just need the break. Just one night of sleeping on a bed in a safe-ish and private space, then I would go back to my normal, anxiety-riddled life the next day. I was a wreck, but the fact that I was working towards something kept me going. I couldn't give up, and finally I had saved up enough to get a place. I was happy, but I didn't want to get too excited until it was official. It's hard to explain the feeling. Now that I've moved in, I am relieved. It's bare, but it's my home. It took a lot, and sometimes I didn't believe in myself, but I'm glad that I made it to this point.